here is Captain Gimpy. The
Mm-hmm.
one that I can't point to is Zen Burro.
Yeah.
And since we finished the Tao Te Ching, we thought we'd bring you a reading by us and conversations about Stoic philosophy through the Enchiridion. So, dude, why did we choose the Enchiridion? Because I don't really remember.
We chose it because it's a lot shorter than reading his discourses, which are very long, and um, that stuff repeats over time, but that's kind of the point. With this one, there are some repeatable, I guess you could call them principles, but they're always in like different contexts and they're succinct. So
like, what about like the Meditations of Marcus Aurelius, which is a lot of people's intro to Stoicism?
like
why didn't we choose that? Because I also don't remember. I'm not trying to be.
Well, I just kind of assumed we were gonna do it after this one.
Oh, so you want to do both?
Yeah.
We can do both. All right. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. We can have two things on Stoicism and try to explore it as much as possible. One thing I do want to say for people that are either watching right now or will watch this later is that we are going to introduce like some technical terminology the way Epictetus uses it as time goes on, but our exploration is going to be largely not academic because for a couple reasons. And if you, Joey, if you disagree with any of these, just chime in. But for me, academic explorations of Stoicism are largely useless, which leads me to reason two. To the Stoics, as to Buddhists, this is a philosophy that's meant to be implemented into daily life, and not just the study, like the subject of an intellectual dissection.
Yeah.
In fact, when you're reading the discourses, Epictetus makes that abundantly clear. That just reading Chrysippus or even just attending his lectures was not Stoicism.
Yeah.
And so there are some points in Stoicism that we both have some issues with, but that's not one of them. We both completely agree with that, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, with that being said, is there anything you want to set up about Stoicism that's not in the introduction, or do you just want to go straight in?
We'll just go straight in. Yeah.
Okay.
Unless you had something else to add.
I don't know.
Okay. That's a good answer, Socrates.
I don't know. Because true knowledge is knowing that you know nothing.
Yeah.
All right, go ahead.
All right, so how to be free? Is it a question or an exclamation, a political manifesto, or a longing to go native, an aspiration for autonomy, or the route to emancipation from bondage? This book presents an ancient Greek philosopher's take on freedom. Freedom construed as living in agreement with nature, owning and ruling oneself, becoming a world citizen, desiring always and only what you are assured of getting, and much more. Epictetus, our author and guide to the Stoic life, was born a slave. His Greek name means acquired, and entered service as a slave in the household of Epictetus, a power broker in Nero's Rome, and himself a freedman. By the time Epictetus publicly delivered his thoughts on freedom, he had enjoyed many years of manumission, but the experience of slavery left its mark on his philosophy through and through. The first lesson of the Enchiridion, his handbook guide to Stoicism, insists that everything that is truly our own doing is naturally free, unimpeded, and unconstrained. Freedom, according to this notion, is neither legal status nor opportunity to move around at liberty. It is the mental orientation of persons who are impervious to frustration or disappointment because their wants and decisions depend on themselves and involve nothing that they cannot deliver to themselves. The Emperor Marcus Aurelius, who reigned from AD 161 to 180, took the point and reflected on it in his Stoic meditations, and the novelist Tom Wolfe followed suit when, in his 1998 novel A Man in Full, he imagines his young hero escaping from both a literal and a metaphorical prison after reading and digesting the discourses of Epictetus. The chief constraint on personal freedom in ancient Greece and Rome was what Epictetus knew at first hand, the social practice and indignity of slavery. It was slavery, the condition of being literally owned and made to serve at another's behest, that gave ancient freedom its intensely positive value and emotional charge. Slaves' bodily movements during their waking lives were strictly constrained by their master's wishes and by the menial functions they were required to perform. But slaves, like everyone else, had minds, and minds as well as bodies are subject to freedom and constraint. You can be externally free and internally a slave, controlled by psychological masters in the form of disabling desires and passions and cravings. Conversely, you could be outwardly obstructed or even in literal bondage, but internally free from frustration and disharmony. So free, in fact, you found yourself in charge of your own well-being, lacking little or nothing that you could not provide yourself. The latter, in essence, is the freedom that Epictetus, the ancient Stoic philosopher, made the central theme of his teaching.
We're going to skip Epictetus in his time and place, right?
Yeah, we're going to skip that one.
Okay. We're doing this one?
Yeah, Stoicism and freedom.
All right. Oh, shit, my bad. There we go.
All right, Stoicism and freedom.
Is there anything you wanted to say about the first section?
I'd say it was a pretty good summation of everything that we're going to be discussing.
All right.
Especially, like, we're going to relate it to our own lives.
Yeah. I think, dude, honestly, like, I think conversations about, like, how this stuff actually applies to, like, us as people is, like, maybe more helpful than just talking about, like, intellectual principle.
Yeah. All right. I'm ready to read, though, so.
Yeah, go.
Yeah, all right. Stoic philosophy had originated in Greece at the end of the 4th century BC. Its founding fathers were Eastern Mediterranean immigrants to Athens, which was no longer a vibrant democracy as the city had been at the time of Socrates, but a client state of the Kingdom of Macedonia. Loss of political autonomy was reflected in philosophy at Athens by an inward turn in the focus of ethics. Neither Stoicism nor Epicureanism, the other leading Hellenistic school, engaged strongly in political theory, as their predecessors Plato and Aristotle had done. The main focus of the younger philosophers' societal attention was not politics and legislation, but personal well-being and self-improvement. This inward turn is strikingly illustrated by the way Stoic thought from its beginning treated freedom and slavery as primarily ethical and psychological denominators rather than marks of social status. According to Zeno, the original head of the Stoic school, freedom is the exclusive prerogative of those who are wise, while inferior persons, who comprise the majority of people, are not only fools but also slaves. A first reaction to this claim could include shock at its intellectual elitism and its insensitivity to the plight of persons unfortunate enough to be literally enslaved. But now consider how radically Zeno's claim in a slave-based economy challenges the evaluation of persons in terms of the conventional servitude/freedom dichotomy. If wisdom is the true criterion of freedom, the principal burden of slavery shifts from the outer to the inner, from the physical to the mental, and philosophy, not manumission, becomes the source of liberty. You are enslaved according to this uncompromising doctrine if you set your heart on anything that is liable to impediment, whether because your body lets you down, or passions and emotions have you in their thrall, or you attach your well-being to things that depend on others, people, property, popularity, or simple luck. In his celebrated essay, Two Concepts of Liberty, Isaiah Berlin distinguished between the negative notion of freedom from coercion, not being interfered with by others, and the positive notion of freedom to be or to live as one chooses, self-mastery or self-determination. For Epictetus, these two notions come together so closely that they entail one another, as we can see in the following. What?
I totally forgot I've read that essay.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Our master is anyone who has the power to implement or prevent the things that we want or don't want. Whoever wants to be free, therefore, should wish for nothing or avoid nothing that is up to other people. Failing that, one is bound to be a slave. We could rewrite the second sentence along the lines, whoever wants to be free from coercion should restrict their wishes and aversions to things over which they have complete control. How can we be sure that such choice is good for us and good for those whose company we share? Why be self-reliant rather than follow the Ten Commandments or some other set of time-honored principles? How can we know what to choose? The answer to these questions bring us back to Zeno's wisdom as the essence of freedom. This Greek word, Sophia, in its ordinary usage, can cover any kind of expertise, ranging from practical craftsmanship like carpentry to abstract knowledge such as geometry. In all such cases, Sophia signifies successful practice of a skill, and the skill that concerned Zeno and subsequent Stoic philosophers is the art of life. We can gloss this art as knowing how to live in harmony, harmony with our human nature and harmony with our social and physical environment. To achieve or try to achieve that understanding is the task of reason, and reason, according to Stoicism, is what makes human beings distinctive among animals.
Are we doing Epictetus as Stoic teacher, or are we skipping? I don't remember.
I thought we said we were.
Okay.
So, yeah, that's what the Stoics meant by freedom.
Yeah. So one thing about that is like, I mean, if you guys want actual background information on the connection between psychotherapy and Stoicism, why is my connection worse than yours? It shouldn't be. Oh, maybe Abelardo's watching things. But Donald Robertson wrote a book called The Philosophy of Cognitive Behavioral Therapy. But suffice it to say, cognitive behavioral therapy was actually a combination of two brain children, right? Aaron Beck and Albert Ellis.
Yeah.
Albert Ellis had a branch of psychotherapy that he developed completely inspired by the Stoics, called rational emotive therapy, which became rational emotive behavioral therapy.
Mm-hmm.
And then Aaron Beck had independently been developing something called cognitive therapy. And when the two married, it gave rise to the first wave of CBT therapy.
Yeah.
Like in the CBT handbook, there's a version of the quote, some things are up to us and others are not.
Mm-hmm.
Page 1, because like what it tries to do is like teach us, 1, that we are not our thoughts.
Yeah.
2, we are subject to cognitive distortions. 3, they can be corrected.
Mm-hmm.
And 4, in doing so, I don't think so. I hope not, dude. It's hella hot. Abelardo was looking for his phone. But where was I?
We are not our thoughts.
We're subject to cognitive distortions. B, or like the other thing with cognitive distortions is
They can be corrected.
They can be corrected, and there are such things as positive cognitive distortions that are actually useful. So in cognitive behavioral therapy, like you'll learn to minimize the negative ones and adopt more pragmatically useful ones.
Yeah.
And a lot of it in the beginning revolves around correcting negative cognitive distortions, like like, oh my god, like I'm so stupid, I can never get a date. Because I always screw it up. You notice the key words there being never and always.
Yeah.
And that is like never true, that you can never get a date because you're always so stupid.
Yeah.
Like everyone has moments where they're just like, dude, what did I do? But like the point is, you always and never are like these extreme qualifiers that just don't always apply. They don't exist.
Right.
In reality, it's just something we say. one thing that Donald Robertson said in discussion about cognitive distortions is it's like because he said Marcus Aurelius was a really skilled orator, like and persuasive speaker.
Yeah.
But the thing about Stoicism isn't to like abolish rhetoric, right? Even though Epictetus is kind of the opinion that we ought to.
Yeah.
Marcus Aurelius, being who he was more of the opinion that like rhetoric is fine, but rhetoric is to persuade other people. You shouldn't be using rhetoric on yourself.
Yeah.
Like you're not like using rhetoric on yourself is like that's where we get things like always, never, or like everyone is out to get me, like all kinds of things that we use to convince ourselves that we're less than what we are.
Right.
More than what we are.
Yeah.
Right. So one of the exercises that you see Marcus Aurelius going through repeatedly is like stripping the rhetoric out of his own thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
Where were we?
Epictetus as Stoic teacher.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. The texts of Epictetus that you will read here elaborate on these doctrines and explore their implications as guidance for everyday life. His contexts cover an enormous range of situations ranging from mundane circumstances of family and professional life to challenging situations such as illness, poverty, and death. Epictetus does not distinguish sharply between morals and manners. Everything we are called on to do and think about is germane to his principal question: is this something that is up to me to decide and get started on, or should I accept it calmly and dispassionately as a situation I was brought about by things that are outside my control? A moment's reflection will show that the either-or question covers just about every imaginable situation. Someone is rude to you, that happening is outside your control, but you have complete freedom in how you respond to it. Accidents happen, a loved one dies. You don't get the job you applied for, you fall ill. None of this was your doing or responsibility, but in each case, you are presented with something else that you can do, namely treat the situation as an opportunity for exercising your own agency and assessment, as is distinct from taking yourself to be a victim of forces outside yourself, or as badly done to, or as singularly unfortunate. Epictetus's message of freedom, when reduced to succinct modern terms, might seem to fit such homely advice as get real, grow up, show what you are made of, let it go, mind your own business. You can find more or less exact equivalents to these slogans in some of this book's translated materials. Their familiarity has much to do with the way ancient Stoicism has influenced Western thought and education since the time when Epictetus, Seneca, and Marcus Aurelius were first assimilated into European and American culture. It was these authors who gave rise to the modern sense of philosophy and philosophical as an outlook of serenity, calm, or resignation in the face of difficulties. These attitudes are not in vogue today because they don't fit the fashion for authenticity, expectation, display of feeling, and self-assertion. But in practice, as modern Stoic practitioners have found, they are timelessly relevant and particularly applicable to our hectic world of social media, sound bites, validation, outrage, attention-seeking, and self-imposed anxiety. Get real, and so forth, as we use these watchwords today, have lost touch with their ancient Stoic underpinnings.
Yeah.
As employed by Epictetus, they are advice on how persons can best organize their lives, according to the Stoic understanding of nature, psychology, and human values. Although Epictetus's voice is homely and informal, he was not himself a sloganeer. He was a popularizing presenter of an elaborate philosophical system which relied, as any genuine philosophy must rely, on rigorous argument, internal coherence, and empirical justification. One of his key words is nature, the Greek physis. This term covers three interrelated areas. One, the structure and contents of the physical world, hence the scope of our word physics. Two, human nature in respect to our mental faculties, aptitudes, and potentialities. And three, the values that accord or fail to accord with human excellence and flourishing life. As background to reading the Enchiridion and my selection of passages from the Discourses, here's a short review of these three areas of nature and Stoicism and the way Epictetus uses them.
And we're doing that, right?
I remember we were going to skip living in harmony with nature because it's really long.
Oh, that is the okay. That was the long one.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, you're right. Damn, this is really long.
Yeah.
I mean, it's important, dudes, but like we can kind of summarize that. Hold on, let me just refresh myself real quick, so we could just summarize it. External nature. Oh yeah. Never mind. I get it. I got it. Okay, human nature. Okay. So let's take a look real quick and talk about the groundwork for. Wait, what the heck? Okay, my window disappeared. Is it back now? I don't know. It's back.
There it is.
Okay, I see what happened. So apparently I have to leave the window open. Okay. So one thing, like, okay, so living in accordance with nature, right?
Right.
There's a few things to understand. The Stoics believed very deeply in their conception of the law of cause and effect.
Yes.
So to them, the universe was one giant interconnected living thing.
Yeah, like it was interconnected and shit.
And so for them, that's what logos meant. Right? So, if you're Christian, in the beginning there was the Word, and the Word was with God. John chapter 1, verse 1, right?
Yeah.
Oh, God, Jesus.
Did that hurt you?
Oh, why are you in there so hard?
Yeah, his attic is pretty large.
So the word in Greek that gets used there is logos.
Mm-hmm.
But logos doesn't necessarily mean just what Christians have used it to mean.
Yeah.
So logos is where we get the word logic. It's where we get the Greek word for word from. It also means incarnate thing, like a concept made real.
Yeah.
And so for them, the Stoics used it in the sense of like the world and the universe is one giant freaking membrane. It's rational, it's ordered, hence we get the idea of cause and effect.
Yeah.
And so things are sort of determined by that cosmic order. And so from that, we get the idea that the thing that we are in complete control of is the same thing that orders the universe. This is the strictly like religious Stoic perspective, like the old Stoic view. Modern Stoics take a different kind of view depending on the person's personal religious orientation. I'm just talking about like how Stoics would look at this traditionally.
Right.
So since they believed that the universe was rational, you'll hear Epictetus, for example, in the Discourses, uses God, Zeus, and nature all interchangeably.
Yeah.
And the Christians like the use of the word God, so they borrowed stuff from Epictetus and made the military, like the manual of the Christian soldier, and like adapted the Enchiridion to fit the Christian pathos and ethos.
Yeah.
Right? Oh God, I'm teaching philosophy on the internet. Damn, I'm in lecture mode. Just go with it. So from that, they believed that we share in the same rational faculty that governs the universe. So for them and for me, it's
and me.
It's a duty to do my very best to exercise that rational faculty in all things. And in Epictetus and Marcus Aurelius and Seneca, you'll find that they perfectly understand that taking up philosophy, the philosophy as they term it, right. Is practice, as in it's like a process of skill development. So they don't expect perfection, but they do expect you to be constantly attempting to better yourself as a practitioner of that philosophy.
Yeah.
So that's really important to understand. That's like how external nature relates to internal nature,
Mm-hmm.
right? And with that rational faculty, the Stoic view, since they didn't have all these studies on various mammalian creatures and pro-social behavior the way that we do now,
Yeah.
they thought that we were uniquely like inclined toward pro-social behavior,
Yep.
which meant that they also saw a duty of a Stoic to society to try to find your place in the way that your city works, because Greece was full of city states.
Yeah.
For the longest, and to do your best to find your social duty within that and act that out to the best of your ability.
Right.
I think that covers all three areas. Yo, yeah. Blacktastic Media talking about Stoicism today, dude. Like I'm getting super nerdy. Apparently, I'm a philosophy teacher.
Yeah, it's been. This is how I learned philosophy, because I had a free teacher.
I guess. I don't even know if I was a good one.
Yeah, it's a good thing he doesn't have a financial structure, because I would owe him a lot of money.
You would owe me an insane amount.
Yeah, like more than my my other debts.
Like, dude, you'd probably literally owe me at least like 5 years at like 60 grand a year is what like a professor would normally get paid.
Yeah, yeah.
You'd owe me like $300,000.
Yeah.
If it was top end, dude, you'd owe me like almost $500,000.
Yeah.
Oh, that's crazy. You don't owe me anything.
So it's a good thing that he has some internal ethics.
Shit. All right, keep going, dude. My bad.
All right, so freedom and ethics. Speaking about ethics, the Stoics' theory of goodness and badness puts them in the camp of philosophers who think that the proper objects of moral judgment are a person's will and intention as distinct from their actions' consequences. Yet the principal aim of the theory, as Epictetus presents in Enchiridion, appears to be the agent's own happiness and tranquility rather than that of other people. Such self-centeredness seems at odds with any deep interest in the needs of other human beings, in which case do the Enchiridion and discourses offer us a guide to the moral life, taking that notion to include the good of others as well as oneself, or acting entirely for their sake? This is a question to which Epictetus has a remarkably effective response if you agree with him that it is every creature's nature to shun things that look harmful or cause harm, and to like the look of things that are beneficial or bring benefit, and that wherever people's interest lies, that's also the site of their reverence. Ethics, according to this Stoic viewpoint, starts from and must accommodate our basic human interest in our own individual benefit or good. We do not start from instincts of altruism. To make room, then, for the good of others, Epictetus needs to show that his message of mental freedom is not a solipsistic benefit, but socially advantageous and consonant with living in harmony with human nature, construed quite broadly. As individuals, we benefit hugely from not being troubled by emotions like envy, jealousy, fear, and anger, and by having the corresponding virtues of patience and self-control. Tranquility is an obvious good to the tranquil, but its benefits redound no less to our families, friends, and associates because negative emotions often motivate aggressive and hurtful behavior. In contemporary life, ethics typically enters conversation in contexts where norms of conduct are violated, whether in business or sexual behavior or disturbances of the peace. Epictetus's freedom regimen satisfies the moral imperative to do no harm. How is it with positive moral imperatives, not just refraining from harm, but deliberately treating others with care and consideration? Can our interest in freedom and tranquility motivate us to be friendly and philanthropic? Stoic philosophers had traditionally argued that our instincts for self-preservation are combined with powerful social instincts, starting with family life and extending to local community and beyond.
I just talked about this.
Yeah, Epictetus does not address this doctrine explicitly in this book material, but his endorsement of it is evident in numerous passages. He presupposes interest in supporting friends and country on the condition that one maintains an honorable character in so acting. He has much to say about appropriate role model or role play in family relationships, with emphasis on what is incumbent on oneself as distinct from what one can expect in return. Here, too, his focus on freedom from disabling emotions comes forcefully into play, with the deadly quarrel between the sons of Oedipus competing for the throne being one of his most telling counterexamples. His memento mori warnings concerning wife and children touch a bleak note. Until, oh, what?
I said beedly boop.
Until we reflect on the prevalence of infant mortality and premature death in his time. Rather than insensitivity, they betoken the strongest possible recommendation to care for loved ones as long as we are permitted to have them. The emotional freedom at the heart of his message has enormous ethical import in the space it provides for us and what we can do. Seneca, writing at the time of Nero, had said it memorably. Freedom is the prize we are working for, not being a slave to anything, not to compulsion, not to chance events, making fortune meet us on a level playing field.
Are we doing a free will?
We're just going to summarize that, I believe.
Okay. We'll do that. Give me a second. Let me minimize this then. And unspotlight for real quickle. But before I do, I want to briefly touch on something that I think is super important. There are a number of people who basically use Stoicism as a set of life hacks for emotional control.
Yeah.
And they don't do anything else with it. So they'll use like the apostrophizing of thoughts. That means like conversationally engaging your thoughts in a way to dial down certain emotions, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they'll just do that and continue to treat everyone like crap because to them, Stoicism falls into the territory of solipsism, or at least supports pre-existing narcissistic tendencies. So I just want to say that whether you're taking up Buddhism or real Epicureanism, as opposed to like how we use the term Epicurean,
right,
or Stoicism, Buddhism, whatever. It's important that you make it part of your mission as a person who's made that decision.
Yeah.
To learn as much as you possibly can, and don't just look at listicles that try to give you like 5 things you can do from ancient wisdom today to improve your life. Like, please learn from the sources. Please learn from people who study this. Like, A.A. Long is one of the foremost modern scholars on Stoicism, trying to bring Stoicism into the 21st century, which is why I chose this translation specifically to read on stream. And like what he says here is exactly right from my reading of Marcus Aurelius and Epictetus. Let me try to fix my camera because like it doesn't, because I'm getting cut off a lot. So Marcus Aurelius says that if you are quick to anger and treat people like crap, essentially, it's not a sign of strength.
Yeah.
To strong-arm people into doing what you want, right?
Yeah.
He actually says that if you are the kind of person that does that, you are brittle, and that is not manly. And I wish this was taught in schools for that reason. Because we have this perception of strength in our culture that is completely poisonous and usually involves like, don't listen to what anyone says, just do whatever the hell you want. It's completely self-serving.
Yeah.
And I'm glad to see we're moving away from that, but I also think we're losing something by going completely in the other direction.
Yeah.
Um, free will.
Yeah, free will.
I think I kind of already talked about this. So, for the Stoics, going back to their cosmological view of the world as being eminently rational and, kind of deterministic, right?
Yeah.
Like everything is determined by this system of cause and effect for the Stoics. If you go back and read the older Stoics, what you'll find is they looked at literal nature, the thing that we would call nature, like their surroundings,
Mm-hmm.
as being kind of magical. They saw like everything as sort of like existing in this interconnected web, and they saw themselves as stewards of that environment in a very real way. Like they were very careful not to abuse the environment they found themselves in. Which is why I think Marcus Aurelius probably pulled back on the conquering
Yeah.
and started trying to focus more on improving the condition of Rome at home, because by that time it was in shreds, dude.
Yeah,
And
and it was just external circumstances that forced him to be out in the field.
yeah, that's my reading of it. I know people are probably going to say something, but but I think you're right.
Yeah.
I
Like
think,
forces of history are very powerful.
oh, dude, and
Yeah.
so yeah, I just want to make that distinction, right? Because I don't think the Stoics were just about like keeping a stiff upper lip and like strong arming yourself and others into like action that you see as being desirable rather than beneficial. And that's what sometimes it gets used to do. Like, be the next high powered CEO, be able to handle life stresses. And all that stuff is true, but like if you study it deeply, it's a very humanistic type of philosophy.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the end of my rant on that. Free will, my bad. ADD, sorry. Um, so for the Stoics, because they saw the world as being eminently rational, right? There was the like. I'm not going to use the technical terms mostly because I'm garbage at remembering what the three disciplines are. So there's one where it's like Epictetus calls it the proper use of impressions, but that also encompasses two things. Like it encompasses recognizing those impressions, like those we'd call them automatic thoughts.
Yeah.
Like, oh, fuck that guy. I don't like that person. That's an automatic thought.
Right.
Like dude cuts you off and you get pissed. Automatic thought.
Yep.
Like road rage, for example, is not automatic. It's giving in to that immediate feeling and saying, yeah, that's how I feel. I'm going to screw that guy.
Yeah.
That's the difference. Like, he's not saying automatic thoughts are bad, right? We don't have control over those. And I think like a deep reading of Epictetus and even Marcus will yield that like we don't have complete control over that. But what we do have control over is whether or not we engage those thoughts more deeply.
Mm-hmm.
The third one is, or the next one is like, so the first thing is like recognizing those thoughts. The second discipline involves what you assent to, like what you give permission to mentally.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And the third involves like how you then react. Like, what are your actions in the world after you've gone through this process? Like, to me, that's how I break down the three disciplines of Stoicism. I might be wrong. If I'm wrong, tell me I'm wrong. And, like, I won't be wrong anymore.
Yeah.
For real. Like, like, most of the stuff I learned was, like, just me. I didn't have people to talk to about this stuff.
Yep.
So that's what he means by a free will. So the only thing in your control basically is like what thoughts you choose to engage in, like whether you choose to feed them,
Mm-hmm.
and what you do as a result or don't do.
Yeah. Basically, can you recognize what's actually in your control versus what is external to it?
Right, like what other people have a large degree of influence over, he would argue is not in your control, and you should just like you should categorize it differently. Not ignore it, but you should categorize it differently.
Yeah, and that's one of the key things I think people miss is like, it's not about ignoring it. It's just like, are you aware of it? And
Hmm.
how does this affect you?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So now, like, is there anything you want to add to anything we've talked about?
Um, I was going to bring up a personal example to, kind of,
Oh, dude, do it. That's
yeah,
what it's all about.
yeah, because I was going to say, like when I was going into my backyard pool yesterday, I talked to you about this, but I'm going to go more in depth of like, what was going on in my brain as I was familiarizing myself with the water.
It's
Uh,
important to preface this with autism and can't swim.
yeah. So a little background, like someone threw me in the pool when I was a little kid, and I wasn't really prepared for it. So, um, like I think I almost drowned, but I was saved, and it just kind of made my body really twitchy around water, being in water. Like I've tried a few other times to try to learn how to swim when I was younger. I think in my early 20s, but there was just this. I would always feel this intense grip of fear.
Oh, dude, yeah.
Yeah, that was completely disabling. And recently, yesterday, it was a lot better. I didn't feel that intense fear. It was just more like my body's not used to it and it's a new thing for it. So I was talking to myself in my brain. I was like, okay, this is new for you. Your body has to get used to the mechanics of being in water. Um, and like just like anything, you're gonna not really suck. You're gonna really suck at first. But remember when you did these things, like when you started yoga or you started exercising, and how like you just kept doing it, and then it just became more. It became more natural.
Right.
Started to feel, yeah. And so that was the approach I took. So yeah, and it was pretty nice.
Awesome. I actually have a personal example too now that you made me think of it.
Yeah, I was just gonna say the what we were just talking about free will and being aware of what things are in your control and what things are not. It was just I had to tell myself that because I had to tell myself that this is normal and I don't have to feel anxious because feeling anxious is when I'll tighten up, and then that's not really good when you're in the water.
Right. Because
Yeah.
then it just goes straight to the bottom.
Yeah, so it was like finding that balance between caution and freedom, or rather,
Yeah.
yeah,
My example is similar, but it doesn't involve water, mostly because I don't have a pool. Right. And like, I'm not really a fan of going to public pools at the moment,
yeah,
particularly ones where they don't have staff trained to teach people with disabilities to swim,
right.
specifically. But I might hijack yours when my burn heals and like get a life jacket and try to learn. But like, um, so my biggest problem for a long time, despite being in a wheelchair my entire life, like at some point I started developing like panic attacks when I would go up inclines. And like you've seen this firsthand because like we lived together for like
Yeah,
a while,
yeah,
like half of our friendship at the time.
hmm
And like I would walk up and I couldn't bring myself to make it up any incline. And I used to do it all the time. Like it used to be one of my favorite things to go up hills and back down them again at insane speeds. Like I enjoyed it, but like over the course of my life, like people have tipped me over. I've gotten a couple of concussions. Um, I've tipped over going up inclines, not being careful of weight distribution and things like that. And eventually it just got in my head that like I couldn't do it anymore. And so like eventually I just got tired of it.
Yeah.
Like, and I was like, dude, you got to get over it, because like going up a ramp shouldn't be a big deal, man. Like, it never used to be a big deal. You did it every day, like for years.
Yeah.
And so like eventually, like I got to the point where I could go up like normal ones, like, you know, curb cuts and stuff that have an incline to them.
Right.
But like I couldn't go up my own driveway up until like recently, dude. And like, you know, the first time I did it, like I had you standing behind me just in case something actually did happen.
Yeah.
And you're like, dude, like my feet are like really nowhere near you. I'm not touching the chair. Like, you're basically doing this like completely on your own.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh shit. So what I realized is that if you stop to like contemplate your position at that moment of doing the thing you're afraid of, you're allowing fear to, you're entertaining. Like, imagine you're at a party, right?
Yeah.
And you're with a dude that's like full of anxious thoughts, and then there's another dude that's like totally chill, right? And then there's you.
Yeah.
If you spend if you spend enough time around the dude that's like super anxious, eventually like the way that he talks is gonna start to get to you.
Yeah.
So you have to tell him like, yo, I understand that you have a reason to be here, right? But I don't need you right now.
Yeah.
So I need you to go in the corner and I need you to sit the hell down. And like this is literally what I have to do some days, like when I'm in a weird headspace.
Yeah.
I have to have that little conversation with myself, like, I just need you to shut up for a minute. Like this. And like over time, what ends up happening is that he stops talking and you don't need to tell him to shut up.
Yeah.
Because he's like, oh, you don't need me, this is not dangerous, and you've done it before.
Yeah.
Like, I'm okay. You're okay, let's go.
Yeah.
And so that's the other thing about like training your mind, according to Epictetus, is you have to be willing to make yourself uncomfortable to some degree in order to make progress.
Yeah.
And that's been my personal experience. Like, I no longer have panic attacks going up inclines. Like, when one's really steep, I'm not an idiot. I ask for help. Okay? Because there are some really steep inclines that, like, are so steep and there's not enough, like, surface area to zigzag and there's no bars. Like, you just gotta ask someone, and that's totally okay.
Yeah, and you can tell it's steep when you're the one pushing.
Oh, dude, yeah. Like, some of the ones downtown are crazy.
Yeah, yeah. So, like, yep.
But yeah, I mean, dude, like, this stuff has literally helped me be a more functional human being on many levels.
Same.
That's one of the reasons why we wanted to do sections on Taoism, Buddhism, and this.
Yeah, because this stuff actually works. That's how I found another job after I got fired from my last one. Yeah,
and when that example comes up in your head again as we read through, we can definitely dissect that.
Yeah, because losing your job is usually considered like an existential type of thing, or people go through an existential sort of passage. I'm not saying it's the only one.
It's weird, right? Because like all the years I spent reading this crap, like, and like thinking about it and trying to apply it, like, I see why for most people, like, they identify with that, but it's mostly because, like, we're taught since we're really young that, like, I mean, this is another thing, too, right, that we inherited from Greek philosophy.
Yeah.
Phrases like, excellence is a habit, or you are what you continually do.
Yeah.
Which is true, but, like, it also leads to this weird place without boundaries, right? Without proper context, I mean. It leads to this place that says you are your job.
Yeah.
You are your thoughts.
Yeah.
And neither of those things are very true at all. But since we've heard it, since we don't, from the time we don't have the ability to decide anything up to the time we're adults, that's what we think is true.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm sure there will be a passage where we can like really dive deep into that.
Yeah.
which is going to be cool.
Mhm.
All right, let me re-spotlight that bad boy. So I moved us to the Intraridion 1 because I think that's what we were going to do.
Yeah.
How far do you want to go today, boy?
I don't know. How far do you?
We'll see. uh, we'll see. Because some of these are long and others are really, really like short.
Yeah.
Even though the work itself is really short overall.
3 too little?
Oh, we could do like 3 or 4. Either way.
All right.
I mean, because we talked about a lot today. So.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. All right. You ready?
Yeah.
Everyone ready? All right. So some things in the world are up to us while others are not. Up to us are our faculties of judgment, motivation, desire, and aversion. In short, everything that is our own doing. Not up to us are our body and property, our reputations, and our official positions. In short, everything that is not our own doing. Moreover, the things up to us are naturally free, unimpeded, and unconstrained, while the things not up to us are powerless, servile, impeded, and not our own. Keep this in mind then. If you think things naturally servile are free, and that things not our own are ours, you will be frustrated, pained, and troubled, and you will find fault with gods and men. But if you think you own only what is yours, and that you do not own what is not yours, as you really don't, no one will ever put pressure on you. No one will impede you. You will not reproach anyone. You will not blame anyone. You will not do a single thing reluctantly. No one will harm you. You will have no enemy, because nothing harmful will happen to you. Keep in mind then that you have to be highly motivated if you want to achieve such great goals. You will have to forego some things completely and postpone others for the present. But if you want both at the same time, the things that are really yours, plus prominence and wealth in addition, you will probably not even get the latter because of wanting the former as well. And you certainly will not get the former, which are the only way to secure freedom and happiness. Right now, then, make it your habit to tell every jarring thought or impression you are just an appearance and in no way the real thing. Next, examine it and test it by these rules that you have. First and foremost, does it involve the things up to us or the things not up to us? And if it involves one of the things not up to us, have the following response to hand: not my business.
So a common thing that comes up for people. Oh, why does it do that? Okay, it's just the Kindle app. All right.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that comes up for people when they read this, like people literally think their reputation and like their station in life is entirely up to them.
Mm-hmm.
Do you find that as well?
Yeah, I do.
So
they identify with it.
What is the remedy for that? Like, what do you think? Like, what do you feel like might be going askew when we think that? Because both you and I have thought this before.
Yeah. Going askew is like attaching yourself to that reputation, like this is me, and the remedy would be to recognize that you earn the reputation because of what you do and people follow you.
I'm gonna play the normal, like, I was gonna say idiot. I'm gonna play an uninitiated person for a minute. But like, isn't my reputation up to me, dude? Like, don't I have control over my reputation? Like, can't I just, grit my teeth and run through the corporate ladder and get where I want to be?
I mean, a lot of that would depend on things that really aren't up to you, like other people's intentions and agendas. Whether you fall ill, what if something happens in your family and you have to postpone it? Is it really that important?
What do you mean my body isn't up to me then? Like, isn't that just the only thing I have? That's me, right? Isn't,
Yeah.
I mean, this is stuff
Good.
people say,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. I mean, people go to the gym and to work out their bodies and stuff, but let's say like you get into a car accident, and as careful as you can be, you can't always control what other people do on the road. In fact, the DMV, I think, even says you have to assume that other people don't know how to drive.
yeah, I've actually read some version of that in the driver handbook.
Yeah, but
But
no matter how
yeah,
careful you are, like you never know. And what if you lose like the use of your limb, or your spine gets broken, or you have whiplash? Um, like doctors can do what they can, but we don't
and
have the technology and that. What are you going to do then?
yeah, like another thing to consider that on a very basic level, we have zero control over our genetics.
That too, yeah.
Like, I mean, okay, crazy people might make that possible in the future.
Mm-hmm.
I don't necessarily think it's a great idea, but that's my own personal bias.
Yeah.
Because when you start breeding out genetic diversity, you're going to give rise to other issues. I
Yeah.
mean, and I feel like that's where it's going to head, but that's like a Brave New World conversation and not like,
Yeah, not a stoic conversation.
my bad. It's just like, um, but in a very real way, we don't choose our genetics. So, like, I have bigger friends, right? And, like, I'm short. Like, at most, I'm probably like 5'6".
Mm-hmm.
Like, at the least. And this kind of depends on the day because sometimes, like, my leg muscles are super tight and don't extend all the way. I'm
Yeah.
like 5'4", right? So I'm short, and like I was like 200 pounds. And like for me, because I know my genetics, right? Like I know that if I take care of myself, like I get skinny.
Mm-hmm.
That's just what happens. For some people, they come from big stock. And so for them, losing weight is an entirely different thing.
Yeah.
They could do all of the things that I did and still not see anything like the results that I got or that I'm currently experiencing.
Mm-hmm.
And like that is not up to you. That is not like that's not necessarily like a lack of willpower. Uh,
Yeah.
that's not like because I know like some thick girls
Mm-hmm.
work out at the gym well before COVID every day. They eat healthier than I do,
Yeah.
and they're really dedicated. And they're still thicker than I will ever be. Like unless I start eating like crap again.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, that's just the way it goes. You don't have any control over that. And I'm mentioning this because this is the thing everyone deals with, right?
Right.
But what you do have control over is how you take care of the body that you have.
Yep.
And, like, to me, as long as your general health markers are good, forget what the BMI says.
Mm-hmm.
As long as your blood pressure's fine, your cholesterol's decent, your triglycerides aren't like in diabetes or pre-diabetes territory,
Yeah.
be happy with yourself because you're doing really well. I know people that look like Zen Burro who are really unhealthy. Like they're on like 6 different medications.
Yeah, I've met them too.
And they look just like you.
Yeah, and it's kind of jarring.
Right. And that's my point, dudes. We have the body we have. I didn't choose CP unless you subscribe to like a New Age worldview. Then I chose everything. I
Yeah.
don't believe that at all.
Mm-hmm.
But like it's out there. I didn't choose to have CP. This is the body I was given, right?
Yeah.
And like I went through periods where like I was like, oh, this is shit. Cause like I wanted to like walk, run, dance, get on swings,
Right.
like have porno sex. I don't know.
Yeah.
Nobody really wants to have porno sex. Very few people actually do, by the way. In
Mm-hmm.
case you guys are curious, porno is not real. Yeah, but like what I learned over time is that I do have control over what I do with the body that I got.
Yep.
I've gotten to a point where like I'm pretty happy. Um, Full disclosure, I have what I call eating disorder brain. I don't have a diagnosed eating disorder, but I have a lot of the same mental tendencies as someone who has anorexia.
Yeah.
And one of the ways that I've learned to deal with it is through meditating and doing this like rigorously when it comes to those thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
Because I do have the thing that tells me that no matter what I do, I'm fat and disgusting and ugly and like nobody will ever love you. You should be looking better. Like I hear this every day.
Yeah.
And then I sit to meditate and it quiets. I engage with my thoughts like, oh, like you're just a thought. Like there are plenty of people out there that look like I do and they're perfectly happy. So like there's no correlation between happiness and this that you're telling me.
Yeah.
That being said, if you have an eating disorder or you suspect you might, please see a licensed clinical professional. I'm not advocating just doing it yourself.
Yeah.
I actually went to therapy for different reasons, and like that's what made it clear to me that I actually had issues with this, but they were manageable for me.
Right.
Please, if you need help with that, go get the help. Like it's for real serious. Yeah, I'd be irresponsible if I didn't say that.
Right.
All right, number 2.
Sure. Keep in mind that desire presumes you're getting what you want, and that aversion presumes you're avoiding what you don't want, and that not getting what we want makes us unfortunate, while encountering that we don't want makes us miserable. So if among the things contrary to nature you restrict aversion to those that are up to you, you will experience none of the things you don't want. But if you are averse to sickness or death or poverty, you will be miserable. So move aversion away from everything that is not up to you, or up to us.
Yes.
Transfer it to the things contrary to nature that are up to us. As for desire, give it up completely for the time being. Otherwise, if you desire any of the things that are not up to us, you are bound to be unfortunate, while none of the things up to us, which it would be fine to desire, will be available to you. Confine yourself to motivation and disinclination, and apply these attitudes lightly, with reservation and without straining.
Do you want to say something about that one?
I mean, it's a pretty good advice on how to break a bad habit you're trying to get rid of.
Oh yeah, how? I know, but like yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I've completely stopped eating donuts as a small example.
Yeah.
That was like, because I used to work at Bel Air, the grocery store, and their donuts are freshly made in the morning, which I would be working in the morning.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
The best donut.
yeah, best time. But I just wanted to stop eating donuts because, like, I realized, because when I was growing up, like, my mom would just eat maybe a piece of cake or some other sugary food with coffee, and I grew up around that, so that's what I would do. But I realized after a certain point, like, I felt it was really affecting me negatively, not just in terms of, like, energy, but just feeling kind of irritable and stuff.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I just want to stop eating donuts altogether. I wonder if I can do it. And I would just distance myself from looking at donuts, or I wouldn't say I was avoiding it either. It was just like, oh, instead of buying a donut, I'll just buy this thing, which sometimes would be like a salami wrap cheese stick.
What's a salami wrap cheese stick?
It's just a cheese stick with salami wrapped around it.
Huh?
Yeah.
Sounds weird. Buy me one.
One of these days, maybe. But anyway, yeah, so that's what I just kept doing, and then after a while, I found I didn't really want any donuts.
So,
And it's yeah. I'll go ahead.
oh no, finish first.
And I was gonna say, like, I've tried donuts recently. Like, I tried one maybe a couple weeks ago because someone had brought over donuts from. It's a famous donut place, and they put things like Oreo donuts and bacon donuts.
Is it the Krispy Kreme?
No, it's not Krispy Kreme. It's someone else.
Now I want one. Shit.
Yeah, but anyway, I just ate it and I was like, this is pretty good. Like, it's been a while, but like, I never found myself craving another donut the next day.
Or like you didn't feel like you wanted to go back to that habit, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I was just like, oh, that's fine. I mean, it's whatever.
So you inadvertently hit on 2 points that studies in willpower have yielded.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was on purpose, but you did a beautiful job.
Well, thank you. I didn't do it on purpose. I guess it was the logos.
See, here's the thing, like, if you want to follow the 48 laws of power, you don't admit that.
Yeah, I know. I just broke a rule.
I'm
F
just kidding. The reason that joke is funny to me is because Ryan Holiday, who's stock and trade now, is like teaching people resilience skills through courses and books,
Yeah.
along with marketing, because he still writes a lot about marketing, and that was what he did for a long time, and he's still doing it in his own business. But he was like mentored by Robert Greene,
Yeah.
who wrote the 48 Laws of Power, and is actually a pretty stoic dude.
Yeah.
It is nothing like the 48 Laws of Power suggest. He writes that way, just as an aside. He writes that way because I know people read him.
Mm-hmm.
He writes that way because he knows tantalizing it brings people in.
Yeah.
And, like, he wants to teach those things because he sees them in the real world and thinks that it's beneficial to understand them when you require them.
Yeah.
It's also beneficial as, like, to protect yourself from people who abuse those principles.
Yep.
But he's a really, like, from what I've seen, he's a really cool dude.
Yeah. Yeah. He suffered a stroke recently, and he has a pretty good video.
Oh, dude, that video is incredible. He did an interview, a short interview, well, shortish.
Yeah, shortish.
Like a 45-minute interview on YouTube with Ryan Holiday. It was amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, I've watched a lot of Robert Greene interviews, and he always gives great interviews. But I mean,
Yeah, this one was.
that one hit me
Mm-hmm.
hard.
Yeah.
Like, I think I cried a little. Because here's the thing: when you are physically different, either because of an accident or because you were born that way, there's a tendency to feel really alone because you're surrounded by people who don't look like you, who don't feel like you, who don't experience the world the way you do. And to see somebody who experiences some kind of impairment late in life and is able to deal with it with dignity,
Yeah. Yeah. That's good.
and to be very open and honest about what you think and feel when that's happening to you.
Mm-hmm.
I have a lot of respect for that.
Yeah.
A lot of respect. Yeah, so but you inadvertently hit on two very good things that studies of willpower have yielded to us. If y'all know, do you know about the cupcake experiment?
Maybe.
Thing? You know, if they can wait like 5 or 10 minutes or whatever it is without eating the cupcake or the marshmallow, the
Right.
reward object, you get 2 of them and you have both. And if not, if you eat the one, that's all you get.
Yeah.
What they found is that even in kids, and even like in kids, like the people who were most successful were not the people who had exercised the most willpower as we traditionally see it, as the ability to resist something.
Yeah.
The people that were most successful were the kids that shifted their attention to something else. So they started playing with toys, like playing little games with themselves or singing.
Yeah.
So your story fits very well into that, because what you did was you were like, okay, instead of doing this, like, I'm not even going to think it, like, I'm going to go do this other thing. And so eventually you just stop thinking about the thing that led you to change your habit in the first place.
Yeah, and I could look at it, to use the Stoic word, dispassionately.
Yeah, exactly. But like, it takes time to distance yourself from those initial.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And the other thing is, like, they found that because of studies like that the people that were most successful in life at what we think is self-control were actually people who organized their lives to work in favor of what they want.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like, Stoicism plus that kind of dispels the traditional myth of, like, success equals willpower,
Right.
right?
Yep.
It's just something I thought was worth paying attention to.
Yeah. I think that's a pretty good example.
Like, my personal examples, like, so I've mentioned this before, but I was literally, like, I'm short and I was almost like 200 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I was a size 34, but, like, I was very close to a 36. Like, 36 was starting to fit.
Yeah.
Depending on the brand. And, like, that's too big for my frame. I was getting out of breath, like, trying to get in and out of my wheelchair. And I was like, all right, I got to do something.
Right.
So I did keto for, like, 3 months, and I lost, like, 30 pounds. I lost 10 pounds a month.
Mm-hmm.
Which is insane.
Yeah.
But I did it carefully. And then after that, like, I transitioned back to, like, a normal diet, but, like, I noticed, like, I was never as hungry.
Mm-hmm.
I also became acutely aware of the effect of sugar on my body.
Yeah.
And so I've, like, drastically cut back on, like, raw sugar intake.
Mm-hmm.
And now, like, I don't even want to eat. Like, dude, I was eating, like, what were those? Double bacon Western.
Yeah.
I was eating, like, 2 of those a day some days.
Mm-hmm.
With, like, the fries and the
Yeah.
big ass drink and the thing. And, like, I can't even do that anymore. I can barely eat one.
Yeah.
Like, I can't eat a single, like, double cheeseburger thing without being sick now.
Right.
And, like, in the beginning of the keto experience, like, that was really hard to do. Like, I still wanted all that. And then after a while, like, I just noticed that, like, those desires went away.
Yeah.
Because I was doing other things. Like, I was like, you know, we were reviewing movies a lot. Like, we were talking about movies. We were talking about philosophy. I started, like, doing YouTube, and, like, I started, like, live streaming, and, like, all that stuff kind of helped curtail the desire for all the stuff that made me unhealthy.
Yeah.
And now, like, I've, started, like, exercising more, and, like, I feel better. And, like, instead of, like, taking things away, I just started adding more stuff to my life that I like.
Mm-hmm.
And that's important. Like, it's not about deprivation, right?
Right.
It's about replacing something that's not working for you with something that works at least better for you.
Right.
It doesn't have to be perfect, but, like,
Yeah, you can always refine it.
Yeah. Skew it towards something that's at first less harmful, and then start thinking about things that you discover from that experience that you would actually like more of in your life, and, like, maybe move toward that.
Right.
Yeah. That's, I think it's important. You want me to read the third one?
Sure.
In a case of everything that attracts you or has its uses that you are fond of, keep in mind to tell yourself what it is like, starting with the most trivial things. If you are fond of a jug, say you are fond of a jug, or I am fond of a jug. Then if it is broken, you will not be troubled. When you kiss your little child or your wife, say that you are kissing a human being, and then if one of them dies, you will not be troubled. This is going to be very weird. I have a very personal experience with this.
Yeah.
My grandpa dying was where I learned this lesson wholesale. My relationship with my grandfather was weird. On one level, I admired him. On another level, we butt heads consistently. He was very harsh, but at the same time, I always knew that he loved us.
Mm-hmm.
And on one level, like, when he was disappointed in me, like, I knew at the same time he was proud of me. It was weird. So parts of it were very cool, and parts of it were very adversarial, and parts of it were very distant.
Yeah.
And when he passed, mind you, it's not an issue of like, oh, he died too young. He was an old man. And it was his time.
Mm-hmm.
But I had this experience of like learning to appreciate the totality of my experience with him, including the bad, right? The
Right.
things that I judged as bad.
Yeah.
And I realized in doing so a couple of things. And I think they're kind of an offshoot from the theme in this passage, but I think they're important still. One was that when I learned to look at the totality of the experience, I realized that he was strict with me specifically because of the fact that I had a disability. He was afraid that the world would spit me out.
Mm-hmm.
So he wanted to make sure that I had the discipline. And the only way that he knew how to discipline was military style. That was it. That's what he knew. He was in the military since he was, my earliest estimate is like 15. Not the U.S. military. This was in the Philippines first, and then he transitioned to the United States Navy and then the Coast Guard. But like the only thing he knew his entire life in terms of discipline was military. Like before he was even an adult. And like that was the first thing I figured out. The second thing is I got to look at his service papers and I realized that he was very much like me.
Mm-hmm.
He had a love of language. He wanted to understand how things worked. He was intensely curious. He took a bunch of classes on how to repair things that he didn't understand. He studied a bunch of languages, which is something I do a lot of.
Yeah.
We were very similar people. And when I understood that, I understood what he was trying to prepare me for. And so when he, like, that actually retroactively allowed me to let him go.
Yeah.
Because part of what was giving me the most grief was holding on to the fact that I felt like I wasn't good enough. Like I needed more time.
Mm-hmm.
But this was the time I was given, and like when I was able to reflect back on it, I was able to learn to see it as a gift.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this is what Epictetus is talking about. Remember that when you kiss your wife or your child, remember you're kissing another human being. Like,
Mm-hmm.
My William Blake poem
Yeah.
comes to mind. He who binds to himself a joy does the winged life destroy, but he who kisses the joy as it flies lives in eternity's sunrise.
Yeah.
If you can learn to appreciate the joy while you have it, and it's because we had joyful moments when he was alive that I could even do that.
Yeah.
If you can learn to do that, this is what the Stoics mean, right? Shift your focus.
Mm-hmm.
You can't change what happens to you that's out of your control. You can't control what other people do. You can't completely control whether you get sick, whether you get promoted, your genetics, but what you can control is what you do with the time you have.
Yeah.
So if you shift your focus, as difficult as that is to do, it's why they recognize that it was a practice and why they have different tools for doing this. And you'll live a better quality of life. Like that's what I found for myself.
Yeah.
And I think you have too, and that's like why I want to share this shit with people.
Yeah. It's very life affirming, actually.
Yeah, which is the opposite of what most people think it is.
Yeah, they think it's completely morbid, but it's just one part of it.
You want to read one more? Talk about one more, and then call it.
Yeah, I'll read it.
Okay.
All right. So whenever you're about to start on some activity, remind yourself what the activity is like. You go out to bathe, picture what happens at a bathhouse. The people there who splash you or jostle you or talk rudely or steal your things, like any other public place. In this way, you will be more prepared to start on the activity. By telling yourself at the outset, I want to bathe and I also want to keep my will in harmony with nature. Make this your practice in every activity. Then if anything happens that gets in the way of your bathing, you will have the following response available. Well, this was not the only thing I wanted. I also wanted to keep my will in harmony with nature. I shall not do that if I get angry about what is happening.
Oh man, Epictetus got me.
Yeah.
All right, you win, Epictetus. You win. Yeah, dude. This was really enjoyable.
Yeah.
I'm gonna highlight a couple things. I turned off the so people can't see what I'm highlighting.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna highlight a couple things real quick, cause man. All right. How do you highlight on two different pages?
I forgot.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Nope, nope, no, don't want to add, no, nope, stop it. Um, uh, um, damn, dude, I'm having technical difficulties today. I also always found the Kindle app to be very strange in how it
Yeah, it is.
functions. Like, it doesn't work like other. God, dude, how do you? Oh my god. All right, I'm just gonna do it like that. That's fine. This isn't the only thing I wanted. I also wanted to keep my will in harmony with nature. I shall not do that if I get angry at what's happening. Okay, Epictetus, you win. And this is what I mean, dude. Like, I've read this a bunch of times, but like, sometimes when I read this stuff, like, I'm still like, okay, I'm doing something wrong.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not doing it the way, I'm not like meeting it with the proper approach. So yeah. Is there anything you want to say about Stoicism in this closing of the first day?
I don't know. I just find I use it a lot. Like, whatever situation I am in, the nature of my thoughts are different from, let's say, several months ago or a year ago.
That leads me to a question about like Stoicism and autism.
Oh, yeah.
What do you do when it comes to sensory things, assuming you don't have a migraine? Because migraine's different.
It's interesting because nowadays I feel like they're getting a lot more painful. I don't know if it's because I've been meditating all the time, so I'm more internally observant of what's going on when that happens.
What are more painful?
Migraines.
No, I mean, assuming you don't have a migraine.
No, but I'm about to go into that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
My bad. Okay.
Because to me, sensory overload and migraines are really interconnected.
Well, I mean, in your case, I think that they are.
Yeah. So yeah, the overload. I more or less try to distance myself when I feel like I am gonna overload. Like, let's say at work or something like that.
Yeah.
But mostly I just chalk it up to before I even enter the place that I know it's going to cause it, that I'm going to experience maybe loud sounds. Like, for example, at my place of work, we're right next to a sort of carpentry place, so there's a lot of hammering and drilling, and sometimes, and those walls are pretty hollow, so like I come to expect that. Because, well, my body's sensitive to all of that. Yeah. But, yeah, just expecting that. Just to go back to the last thing we just read about, like, oh, before you go to the bathhouse, just imagine what it'll be like. Yeah, that's what I do before I go to work. Or, let's say, like today I went to the bank. All I think is like, oh, this is probably what's going to happen, and I just want to be aware of, because you never know, people are weird and they might. What if you get robbed on your way to the bank? You never know.
I mean, this question's probably going to come up again, but like that leads me to another question. It sounds like you're practicing what modern Stoics call premeditatio malorum,
Yeah, yeah.
and like there's a lot of people that think it just makes you more depressed or anxious. Like,
Yeah, I don't feel depressed or even really that anxious. Like,
what's going on there?
oh, what do you mean?
I mean, like, so why do you think some people think that it makes them more depressed or anxious, or are they like?
Well, I think they're not even applying it correctly because you're supposed to, because they're still applying a judgment to that thing happening. Like, oh, it's bad for me, and I don't want it to happen to me. I mean, yeah, you don't want it to happen to you, but like, what are you gonna do if it happens to you?
See, oh, you accidentally stumbled onto
Yeah,
that thing.
yeah. Like, what are you gonna do during? What are you gonna do after? Like,
So, like, sometimes, like, when I feel particularly bored or emboldened,
uh-huh.
I tend to actually, like, participate in discussions in, like, online Stoicism things, like on Reddit or Fossa Book,
Yeah.
right? And, like, one of the things I've consistently noticed with people who have the greatest amount of difficulty with that technique
Mm-hmm.
is that they're just picturing themselves in the situation and then trying to like be comfortable with it, and that's not the
No.
entire point, right? So there's a thing like in old school exposure therapy, which sometimes they still abuse, but it's used as a component of CBT rather than like individually for phobia treatment
Yeah.
or anxiety disorder treatment. Phobia is not current.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. um,
Get back to your own time, you old time.
I'm old. I'm really not that old, but like I learned from really old material.
Yeah.
But so there is such a thing as imaginal exposure, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, like one technique that they use in CB Tizzle now is like if I'm afraid of snakes, and I actually like when I was in therapy, I talked to my therapist about this as
Yeah.
well during this. Um, she was like, "Oh, if you want to be less afraid of snakes, like work your way up. Like depending on like how afraid you are, you might not get to the point where you're gonna hold the snake." And like I hate snakes, dudes.
Yeah.
Like for real. But like I think you've noticed over time, I've become way less reactive toward images of snakes.
Yeah, because that would freak you out too.
Yeah, like really badly. So that, but like premeditatio malorum actually has another key component that is not part of imaginal exposure. Well, it is part of CBT, but it's not just imaginal exposure. What a lot of people in the online Stoic communities, at least, are missing about the technique is you're also supposed to picture yourself like figuring out how to cope with it.
Yeah.
It's a complete mental rehearsal of the thing that makes you uncomfortable and how, when that situation arises, you're gonna deal.
Yeah.
And then you try to take that mental rehearsal that you do on a daily basis and apply it in reality. And then over time, like some of you with anxiety disorders, again, I feel irresponsible if I don't mention this. If you have extreme difficulty, please seek professional help because people with anxiety disorders can get locked into panic attacks
Yeah.
if they're doing this without proper supervision and support.
Yeah.
So, like, if you find yourself in that camp, please, like, at the very least, like, if you can't afford therapy, get a friend that you, like, trust to go through these situations with you and then go with you to these places.
Yeah.
And to have these experiences with you that can help coach you through them. It's super duper important that you have a good support system. If you can, like I would highly recommend working with a therapist who specializes in anxiety disorders, but barring that, if you feel like you can't afford it or whatever, like find a coach, find a friend
Yeah.
who understands this stuff and like slowly start to immerse yourself in the things that cause you anxiety and just observe. Like, what's going to happen is at first you're going to experience a lot of judgment, like, oh, see, you're this, you're that. Like, I told you this was a bad idea. Like, look at where we are now. We're on the floor having a panic attack. But, like, I guarantee you, as much as it sucks, you're okay.
Yeah.
You're okay. And I know because I've been through this, right?
Mhm.
You, like, I don't know if you've had panic attacks, but I have. Like, I thought I was dying, and then I realized, like, oh, I'm having a panic attack. Okay.
Right.
Like, and like I've had to like help people through panic attacks,
Mhm.
and like you'll be okay.
Yeah.
If you have no one to talk to, I guess you can talk to me.
Yeah.
Like, it's a little weird because this is all like text mostly.
Mhm.
But like, dude, I don't really mind. Um, I don't mind. So like, if you have no one to talk to and you're out there in Twitch land, and you really don't feel like you have any friends or anybody who can listen to you, I can listen.
Mhm.
Because I mean that's what we're supposed to be here for anyway.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like Judith Butler said in her segment with Sonora Taylor in the documentary Examine Life. You know, we live in a world where people need help, and like if we're able to help them, like that's the world I want to live in. Like where we recognize that we are interdependent beings that need help sometimes.
Yeah.
And yeah, I guess that's to quote Forrest Gump. That's all I have to say about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was a good stream, dudes. Thank you for watching. Whoever watched, whoever didn't watch, remember the VODs are on YouTube. Like you can find me on Facebook, you can find me on the Instagram. And when I'm not lazy, I'll remember to put links and all the things.
Yeah.
I really don't understand how I'm supposed to lay out the new Twitch panels because the plugins don't work like they used to anymore. So if you know how to do that, DM me on any platform, and I'll get that set up.
All right.
All right, dudes. Till next time. Peace.
Yeah. Peace.